Uh, Thank you all. Now we'll start the session. Good afternoon all. I Borianga, Secretary IEEE Students Chapter, Reva University. Welcome you to all to this 1 week online workshop on green energy development, supporting technologies and environmental aspects, organized in association with IEEE PES Bangalore session. Uh, I am to share that more than 600 participants have registered, which includes participants from 15 countries. Reva University IEEE PES student chapter is actively involved in organizing seminars, symposium, workshops, and webinars regularly. Let's we have video of Reva University.
The future is always indefinite, complex, scary, and changing. Every aspect is now moving at a faster rate than ever. Be it education, entertainment, work, technology, and even lifestyle, making it harder to predict of what is to come every day, every minute, and every second. And this is why we need the young minds to absorb the right information, creating a new breed of world-class engineers trained to design the next big thing. Artistic architects who understand the need for sustainability, and the much-needed socially responsible lawmakers. Let's not forget the brilliant graduates of commerce, science and technology, management and arts. But where? Reva University is your answer, a place where young minds collide with superior knowledge, creating a superior mark in the private university space with unique educational methods based on experiential learning and knowledge exchange through interactive sessions. Also, providing you with the opportunity to switch to a desired curriculum and interdisciplinary studies of your choice at any time. A broad spectrum of extracurricular activities like sports, dance, various clubs, and so on are available for you to pursue. Not just that, Reva also promises a fantastic university experience with a calm, peaceful and diverse campus, encouraging students from all over the world. With state-of-the-art laboratories, latest sports facilities, well-equipped media centers, a library that fulfills its tag as an extensive knowledge bank, and hostels that make you feel at home with tasty food that's nutritious. The future is now easier with the light from some of the best minds and with friendships that last a lifetime. You now have the power to choose an outstanding future. Reva University, one association for many great careers.
School of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, Reva University takes pride in welcoming Dr. Sandeep N. Dr. Sandeep N obtained his bachelor degree in Electrical and Electronics Engineering from BMS College of Engineering, Bengaluru in 2012, master's degree in Power Electronics and Drives from Vishwesvaraya National Institute of Technology, VNIT, Nagpur, India in 2014, and received the PhD degree in Electrical and Electronics from National Institute of Technology, Karnataka, NITK, Surathkal, India in 2018. He was recipient of MHRD Fellowship for MTech PhD degree and is a senior member IEEE. He is currently working as an assistant professor in the Department of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, MNIT, Jaipur, India. He has authored more than 50 research papers in peer-reviewed journals and conference, which includes 25 articles in IEEE Transactions and IET Power Electronics journals. His current research interest includes multi-level inverters, grid-tied photovoltaics, and electrical vehicles. He was the recipient of the Best Poster Prize Award at the 18th IEEE National Power Systems Conference 2014. IIT Guwahati, India. He is serving as regular reviewer of several journals, including the IEEE Transactions of Power Electronics, IEEE Transaction on Industrial Electronics, and IET Power Electronics.
Actually,
on behalf of Reva
I thought of just
University
an energy scenario in India.
Students chapter, we welcome you to this
See,
one-week online
players were
workshop.
allowed to
Thank you,
participate
sir,
in
for
power
accepting
generation,
our invitation. The
ending the
session is
monopoly
hand
of the
over to you, sir.
generating stations or generating units. So when private players were allowed to participate in the power generation,
Sir,
so
it
that
is audible, sir.
was a big move those days, because private players were participating in power generation.
Yeah, I hope the slides are visible. Is it so?
You can go with full slideshow, sir.
Yeah, it is in full
Yeah,
screen now.
thank you, sir. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, right. Right. So, a very good afternoon to all. And first of all, it was very sad to hear the news about Mandi sir, and I pray the Almighty to give, to give the Atma Shanti to him and his family all the strength to bear this loss. So yes, today we are going to discuss on the power converters for grid connected PV systems. So overall, as an introductory or the overall contents that will be presented, it includes the basic PV modeling and the power electronic converters that are widely used for extracting the PV power, and the challenges that are existing in a grid connected PV system, and what are the inverter topologies that are available. So yeah, so looking at the energy scenario, so this is the graph which shows that after few years we will not be left with any fossil fuel for generation of power, which we are highly dependent on. Right? So hardly we have left out with hardly it is about 200 years that will be exhausted with all kind of fossil fuels. So this driven or this motivated to go for a non-conventional energy sources which are highly very close to the nature and do not have any harmful impact on the nature and which are non-exhaustible. They are inexhaustible that are there for always. Right? So among the two means among the many we can say PV and wind. These are the two prominent sources, prominent non-conventional sources that are available, wherein even India has a very huge potential for extracting power from these two sources, that is the wind and the solar photovoltaic. So in wind power generation, we have a turbine, so coupled to the windmill, and depending upon the velocity of the wind speed, the power generation is going to be happening. Right? And in case of a solar photovoltaic, we have a PV module or a PV array or any which directly converts the sunlight, both diffused and the direct, into DC, that is direct current electricity. Right? So these are major two sources that are available. But the main challenges that are associated with these two sources is the intermittency, or we can say that as we know that the wind and the sunlight is not constant throughout the day or throughout the year. So it continuously varies and we cannot predict what will be the value in the next second. So hence the power generated is also varies in the same fashion. Right? So we cannot predict what will be the power generated. So with these kind of intermittent natured sources in a grid or in a power system is going to affect the overall stability of the system. Right? Because the power that enters into the node or into the power system is going to vary, and we cannot have or we cannot make a decision depending, since we don't know what exactly the power that will be available in the next moment. So what do we do? And also it happens that the power generated by these source might not be readily given to a load, because the characteristics or the nature of the load is varying, or it has a different set of requirements. Hence we may have to go for some kind of a processing. Right? So the raw power, you can say the raw power that is being generated by this wind and the solar has to be processed, and it has to be converted into a form that can be readily used to feed a load or to feed it into the utility grid. Right? So how can we do that? So for achieving that, we need to have a power interface. So the power interface basically matches the characteristics of the source and the load. So we have the power coming in from the source, and that will be processed through, and that will be given to the load in a form that it requires. So what exactly do we have in this power interface? Right. The power interface has majorly three components, that is a switch and the reactive elements, which is the capacitor and inductor. Right. The switch here is a power electronics, right? It's a semiconductor switch. So basically a switch has the voltage and current in a switch are mutually exclusive to each other. Right? When we have a current through the switch, that is when the switch is on, there is no, and when we have the voltage across switch, that is when the switch is off, there is no current through it. So ultimately the power that gets lost in the switch is zero, because voltage and current are mutually exclusive. Right? So using this switch, what we are trying to do is we are trying to modify the power that is available from the source. Right? For some time we'll be connecting the power to the load, and sometime we are going to disconnect it. So by having this continuous connection and disconnection, we are going to have an average control for the power that is being transferred to the load. But however, the problem here is this kind of switching causes discontinuity in the power flow. So in order to maintain a continuous power flow, we need to have a buffer system, that is the energy storage elements, which are going to store the energy for some time, and then after it is going to retrieve it, or we are going to retrieve it to the load whenever we have switched off the, or whenever we have uh, disconnected the source. So this is the whole idea of switching and also having a storage element. Basically, the combination is going to make sure that we have a controlled conversion of power, and also there is a continuity in the power that is being maintained because of the energy storage elements. Right? So this overall idea of switching and storage is called as power electronics. So the core idea of power electronics is switching and also the, we can say, the energy usage of energy storage element, or we can say it as filtering. In other words, we can say we are going to filter out the discontinuity, or the ripples, or the unevenness in the power that is happening because of switching. Right. So what exactly are we doing in power electronics? So basically, power electronics, there is one thing that happens, and that is the only thing that happens, is the power conversion. Right. So why do we require power conversion? As I already told, the wind generation, for an example, it generates AC. And this AC, whatever is generated, is dependent on the speed with which the turbine is rotated. So as the velocity of the wind varies, the turbine speed varies, and in turn it affects the voltage and also the frequency of whatever the voltage that is being generated, provided there is no gear mechanism. So this kind of AC voltage, we cannot directly connect it to the grid, because we require, when we want to connect an AC generator to the grid, there are so many things that have to be taken care of. Right? So what do we do in that case? We'll convert this AC into DC. What is the advantage of that? The main advantage that we are going to achieve is that we have totally decoupled, or we have removed the dependence on the frequency. So irrespective of the frequency, we get a DC voltage which only depends on the amplitude of the AC voltage. So this is the advantage, and this can be achieved only if we convert this AC to DC. So similarly, we have many situations where we have a load which might be requiring an AC, but we will have a DC source. And similarly, we may have a load which requires DC, but we have an AC source. So basically, power electronics combines, or it is going to couple two systems which have a different requirements. And it is not always true that only when we have this AC DC, the challenge arises. Even when we have a DC system, the load requires DC, but the source available is also DC of different value. Even then, we need to have a conversion. Right? And this conversion should be controlled. Right? Only then we can make sure the system is stable. Right? It should be a controlled conversion. Right. So if the conversion is happening between the two AC systems of different voltage and frequency, then the interface what we use is called a cycloconverter. Right? And if the conversion is happening from an AC system to DC, then we call it as a rectifier. And if it is the reverse from DC to AC, then we call it as an inverter. Right? And if the conversion is happening between two DC systems, we call the interface as a chopper. And many times we may not be able to directly convert from one form to another form because of the characteristics. The source might be voltage type, the load is also voltage type. Then we cannot have a direct conversion. We have to go for an intermediate stage. So we go for an AC DC and then AC, or it could be a DC AC DC. So this is the uh, task that we do using power electronics. Now, general structure of a grid connected PV system. So when we have PV connected to the grid, there are various stages that the power will be taken through. Right? So these are some of the, typically any grid connected PV system would have these elements. So you have a converter, right? So the generator is a PV, and the input here is temperature and solar. So what does it indicate? That the power generated by the PV is dependent on the sun, that is the insolation or the radiation, and it also depends on the temperature of the module. So these are the two things which are going to affect the generation. So they are considered as the input. And whatever the power generated is processed through a converter, which is basically a switching element. Here it is shown as a single switch, but it may have a combination of switches. in a different fashion. Right? So basically, it has many semiconductor devices arranged in a particular fashion to achieve the power conversion. Right? Then we have a filter. So as I already told, when we have switching, there is a switching. There is a discontinuity due to which there are you can say there will be power fluctuation in the voltage and current. So in order to reduce these fluctuations, unnecessary fluctuations due to switching, we go for a filtering. Right? So the passive filtering, we have an LNC. Then we have a transformer in order to provide the isolation and also to make sure that the safety. And then we have a grid to which the power generated from the PV is being injected. So these are the typical components that you can see in any grid connected PV system. And majority of the photovoltaic PV system what we see are grid connected type because to ensure it has a higher reliability as compared to standalone type. Right? So more and more PVs are of grid connected type. Right. Now the converter, whatever you saw here, and the way the PV will be connected to the grid, we have many architectures available. Right? So depending upon the power level and depending upon the voltage that we operate, so these are the variety that are available for connecting a PV module to the grid. So in figure A, you can see we have a PV module followed by a DC-DC converter, and we have many such DC-DC converters which could be either connected in parallel or they are either connected in series. Right? And they form a DC bus. Okay. And this DC bus, typically the voltage will be around 450 volts, and then we have an inverter, and it is connected to a single phase AC bus. Right? So this is called a module integrated inverter. Right? So here, the figure A is called a module integrated inverter, where we have a DC-DC converter for each of the PV module. Right? Then we have a string inverter, where instead of having a converter for each for a single module, many such PVs will be connected in a string, and that will be given to a DC-DC converter. And then again we have an inverter, and this will be either a single phase or three phase because we have many PVs. So such a large power cannot be injected into the single phase grid. So we may have to go for a three phase. Right? So the DC bus voltage here can go up to 750 because we have many PVs connected in series. So the voltage will be higher. Then we have a central inverter. Right? So we have PV, and this the entire PV voltage will be given to the inverter. And here you can see the voltage can be anywhere from 750 to 1500. Now each of these system has its own advantage and disadvantage. And when it comes to the central inverter, you can see there is only one power electronic converter and the complexity is less. But the problem here is that the DC bus voltage is very high, and the cables, if you practically look at, the DC cables are having a higher cost as compared to the AC cables. And operating at this high value of DC voltage is not safer. But the advantage is that only one inverter you have to control. And when it comes to the PV, the module integrated, you can see there is a dedicated DC-DC converter for each PV module. So this way we can have a better MPPT efficiency. We'll see what is MPPT. So overall, the efficiency of power that is being generated will be the efficiency will be higher, right, in case of a module integrated. And string, of course, has an advantage that if any problem happens in one of the PV, that particular string can be removed, and the rest of the system can continue to operate. So this is a very generic. These are the very generic structure that you can see in any grid-connected PV system. Right? So it could be either, and depending upon the type, the power rating varies. Generally, the central inverters are used for higher power, whereas the module integrated is hardly we have 5 to less than 5 kilowatt, right? So that is the typical ratings of this architecture. Right? Now we will try to understand a bit more about the photovoltaic, that is the PV. So what exactly the PV and how it is different from the other kind of sources, like whatever we know. Right? So here you have a PV panel, and this is the equivalent circuit of PV. Right? So it is represented by a current source indicating that the current generated by the PV is directly, and this whatever the current it generates is called as IFPH. That is, pH represents the photons. That is current due to the photons. That is the energy packets in the sunlight. And we have a diode D indicating the recombination. Right? Basically, PV is a semiconductor material. Right? So there is a diode. You can see the diode effect there, and this represents the recombination. And there is a loss that happens in the PV, that is represented by the RS, and we have a leakage current that is represented by RP. So these are basically the non-idealities. So ideally, PV should have been a constant current source, but these are the non-idealities because of the material, the technology that is currently available. And this is a typical data sheet that how a PV panel. So this is a data sheet for a SolarX company PV panel, MSX 64. 64 represents 64 watt and this is 60 watt. So here you can see that the 60 watt or 64 is the maximum power, that is Pmax. Right? So that is the maximum power that PV can generate at the maximum irradiation, that is 1000 watts per meter square. And we have, these are some of the terminologies which we should be aware of when we go for PV. Right? Then we have voltage at Pmax, that is VMP, that is 17.1 volts, and we have current at Pmax, that is IMP, that is 2.5, and we have something called as the short circuit current, 3.8, and open circuit voltage, 21.5. So basically, this short circuit current is the maximum current that a PV module can generate, and open circuit voltage is the maximum voltage that a PV can generate. So unlike the traditional generators like a synchronous machine or a battery, PV has characteristics of both a constant current and also a constant voltage. Until a particular point called as the maximum power point, the PV operates as a constant current source. Means irrespective of load what you are going to connect, it will try to inject a constant current, and the voltage depends on the value of the impedance you are going to connect. But after the MPP point, it is going to almost maintain a constant voltage, but the current is going to depend on the load. So basically, it has characteristics of both. It is a constant current, as you can see from this graph. Right? So till the point MPP, the current is a constant. And after this point, you can see the voltage variation is very small, but the current is a huge variation. Right? And ISC is the short circuit current, where the voltage is 0, and VOC is the open circuit voltage, where the current is 0. So these are the extreme points for any given PV module. You cannot have a current more than ISC, and you cannot have a voltage more than VOC. And then we have a temperature coefficient. That is, these are the parameters that will be used when we actually model the PV. So you can see the temperature coefficient of open circuit voltage is minus 80 millivolts per degree centigrade. You can see it is a negative sign, which indicates that as the temperature of the cell increases, the voltage is going to drop. Right? The VOC will not be the same. So whatever the parameters listed here, it corresponds to STC, which is called as the standard test condition, where we have an illumination of 1 kilowatt per meter square and the temperature is degree centigrade, right? And air mass of 1.5. So these are called as standard test conditions under which these values are expected. Right? And as the temperature increases, the voltage coefficient is having a negative sign that the voltage is going to reduce. And temperature coefficient of short circuit current is positive. That means as the temperature increases, the short circuit current is going to increase, but the increment will be of very low value. So these are the characteristics. This is the typical characteristic, and it is called an IV curve of PV because it is current versus voltage. Right? Now here you can see the PV curve. Basically, that is the power versus voltage. So if you plot the power that the PV is going to generate versus the voltage, then this is how the graphs would look like for varying irradiation, and this is for varying temperature. Right? So what you can see here that as the irradiation increases, the power generated by the PV also increases. And you can see till the maximum power point, the power increases linearly, then after it drops. Right? Because why is it increasing linearly? You can see here the current is almost constant. So voltage is increasing, and you have a constant current. So into value is going to give you a linear curve. Let's say it is 500 watts per meter square, and this is the power you would get, and this is the maximum power you would get. And these are the graph, and this is the variation in the power versus voltage for varying temperature. You can see as the temperature varies, the variation in voltage is higher. Right? The open circuit voltage is having a higher variation, whereas here it is not much seen. Right? Okay. So now we see something called as MPPT. It is called as the maximum power point tracking. Now, what is the problem with this kind of source, that is the PV kind of source, is that the power, whatever the PV generates, depends on the value of the load that we are going to connect. Right? If you connect the load value, which is having a resistance higher than that at MPPT, then you would get the power lesser. And any value other than this, you would get the power lesser than the maximum power. Right? So hence, what can we do? The problem here is that depending upon the load, the power is going to vary. PV is not a constant power source. It is a power source whose power value, or whatever the power the PV can generate, depends on the load value that we are going to connect. And generally, we expect that whatever the load we have, the power should be maximum. That whatever the available power, the entire power of PV should reach the load. So in order to achieve that, we need to have a power interface. Right? So what is this power interface? Is basically a converter, the well-known converters, buck boost or buck boost converter, a DC to DC. So what we'll try to do is, we try to adjust the duty cycle of these converters, and by adjusting the duty cycle, the effective impedance seen by the PV is going to alter. And if we can make the effective impedance equal to its RMPP, that is the value of resistance corresponding to this point, then the power generated by the PV will be maximum. Right? So we'll just try to see those things. Let me open the definition. Can you just confirm, is the simulation window visible? Or you... Hello?
Tell me, sir.
Is the simulation window visible, or only the slides are visible?
No, sir. Only slide is visible, sir. The simulation is not
How can
visible.
how can I do the full
You can share the screen, sir. You can share the screen. You can share your screen, sir.
I can share the screen, but how can I share the entire screen? Like,
No, minimize that slides and go to screen share, na?
Yes, sir. Like that also we can do, sir.
sorry, every time whenever the result pops up, again I have to share the screen. How can I share the entire?
Yeah, I think both the things. I don't know how it is, but once you can explain simulation, if you are demonstrating something of that sort.
So every time I think that option of share the entire screen is not visible. Okay, I will do one by one then. Sir.
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay. Right. So this is the PV module what we have. and the simulation software is PSIM. Right. So you can see here we have a ready module that is available. So by altering the values, that is number of cells in series and the value of RS, you can see here, this is the series resistance. Shunt, you can change this as per the data sheet that is available. The manufacturer data sheet, you can change this value. And these are the inputs. Yes, is the insulation. That is, I have set it to 1000. Right? And T is the temperature. I have set it to 25. Right. Now first we'll plot the IV curve. Right? The IV curve of this. So in order to plot the IV curve, what can be done is what I have done is I have connected a capacitor across the PV. So what exactly this is going to do? That as you know, PV is a DC generator. Right? It is going to generate DC. So initially the capacitor is a short circuit. Right? When it is uncharged, it will be a short circuit. So the PV is going to is going to see a short circuit across it, and as it charges the capacitor, the voltage is going to increase, and finally the capacitor is going to charge to the maximum voltage of the PV, that is the open circuit voltage, at which time the current is going to become zero. Right? So in this way, by having a simple capacitor across the PV, we can simulate or we can emulate the condition of varying. This is equivalent to having a resistance across the PV and varying its value from 0 to infinity. Right? 0 is nothing but short circuit and infinity is nothing but open circuit. Right? So we'll just try to simulate this. So let me, this is the current. Let me change the axis. Sir, is the result visible? I don't think so.
Result is not visible, Sandeep.
So
only the circuit part is visible.
can be done. Okay, now the result is visible. Every time. Okay. So
Yeah, it is visible, sir.
yeah, every time we need to stop and we need to again say, okay, we'll do that, no issue. So yeah, so this is the curve that you can see here, which is same as whatever we saw, that initially the current is equivalent to short circuit because the capacitor is uncharged, and as the capacitor charges, the voltage is going to increase and it is going to fully charge to the open circuit voltage. So this is the open circuit voltage of the PV, and this is the short circuit current, and this is the point where you can expect, or it is not expectation, where actually the PV is going to generate the maximum power. It is a 60-watt panel. So here at this point, the power generated by the PV would be 60 watt, right? So now the problem is that now the load resistance or the load that actually comes across the PV is not in our hand and it is going to vary, right? So as the load varies, if we still want the PV to generate the maximum power, then what has to be done? So that can be tackled by using a simple DC-DC converter, right? So let me share the screen. Right. So what we have is, so we just saw that we have a PV, right? And can have a simple DC-DC converter, and then you can have a load, right? So this load is varying. So as the load varies, what has to be done? We have to vary the duty cycle of the DC-DC converter. So by varying the duty cycle, the effective impedance seen by the PV is going to vary. And if we can somehow make the effective impedance, we'll call it as R in equal to R naught, or actually we are making the other way around. We are making the R naught equal to R in. Right? If you can make this happen, then the power generated by the PV would be the maximum. Now, what is this R in? R in is the internal impedance of the PV, which is nothing but the PV curve. In the IV curve, whatever we saw, this is the point. Right? If you draw a tangent, right, the slope of this is nothing but 1 by R in. So basically, it is called an RMPP, that is given by BMPP divided by IN. So that is the resistance that the PV is going to have, or you can call it as an internal resistance of the PV for a given MPP voltage and for a given MPP current. Right? So in our case, the MPP voltage is around 17.5 and IMPP is 3.5 if I am right. So this turns out to be approximately 4.8. Right. So what does this RMPP indicate? This basically indicates the internal resistance of the PV. So from the maximum power transfer theorem, we know from our circuits that if you have a load R0 equal to RTH, that is the Thevenin's equivalent, then the power transferred would be maximum. Then you would have a maximum power transfer. Similar theory applies here, that if you can, by adjusting the duty cycle, whatever the value of the load, irrespective of that, if you can make the PV to effectively see a resistance of 4.8 ohms, then the power that will be drawing from the PV would be maximum, right? Since that is the equivalent impedance. And this 4.8 is not a constant, because the IV curve is going to vary as per the insulation, right? So this is the IV curve for 1 kilowatt per meter square. We'll have a different curve for, like, say, this would be the another curve for 0.5. So now the RMPP is different, right? So this way we have to know for a given insulation what is the RMPP, and in order to achieve that RMPP, what should be the duty cycle, and we have to adjust the duty cycle as per that. Right? Now, what is the relation? We'll see that it is a relation of the duty cycle and resistance in case of each of the converter. We'll quickly go through it. First, we'll take up a buck converter. So we have a buck converter. So we have a PV. We have a switch. We have a diode. Right. So this is a simple buck converter. Now what we are trying to do, the load resistance is varying and it is not in our hand. So with respect of that, we are going to fix the duty cycle such that the effective impedance seen by the PV will be 4.8 ohms. Right. Now how can we know that by varying the duty cycle, the effective impedance is varying? That can be done by a simple exercise that we know in a buck converter, V0 is nothing but V times Vin, and similarly In is nothing but V times I0. Right? So this we know, and the power invariance or the energy conservation says that your input power should be equal to output power. Sorry. If you assume the converter to be lossless, this has to be taken care of, this has to be true. Right? I will just try to arrange few things. That what is your R in? R in is nothing but V in by I in. So that can be written as V0 I0 divided by I in into I in. Right? So now this we can further simplify. This can be written as V0 by I in into D, which can be written as V naught by this I in can be further written as I naught into D. So this can be written as R naught by D square. Right? Where your R naught is the load input. Right? So what does this expression show is that the input impedance or the F.
Hello, sir.
Sandeep sir will join, madam, because showing simulation, no? I think.
Okay, sir.
You can go ahead, sir. You can go ahead, sir. No issues.
Yes. Okay. So sorry for that. There was a power cut that happened. Okay. So yeah. I hope the screen is visible. Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
visible.
Yes. Yes, sir. Okay. So what we are trying to do here is that the effective impedance seen by the PV can be changed by adjusting the value of duty cycle for any given value or another. Right? That is the output impedance. So, but you can see from this expression also that this we can adjust only if the value of R naught is less than or equal to RNB. Right? Only then we can make the two values to be equal. So, in a sense, if you use a buck converter in IV plane, this is our RMPP, right? So the buck converter can achieve MPPT only if the value of load resistance is within this region, right? That is less than this point. Only onto the left, not onto the right, right? So this is the problem with the using a buck converter, that the maximum 4-point tracking can happen only if the load resistance is having a value lies onto the left of the MPPT point. And similarly, if you can perform the exercise, we can find out that in case of a boost converter, the value of input impedance, that is R in, would be equal to R naught times 1 minus D whole square. So this is just the opposite. Here you can achieve MPPT only if the load resistance value falls to the right of RMPPT, right? And in the buck boost, the input impedance is given by R naught times 1 minus D square divided by D square. Here, the converter is able to track any value of MPP, since it has both the feature of bucking and also the boosting. Right? So let us quickly go through the simulation. Right. So in simulation, what we are trying to do is, in case of a buck converter, we have an R0, that is a load resistance of value 2.4 ohm. Right. And what is our RMPP? RMPP is 4.8 ohm. Right. So you will find the duty cycle is 1/2. Right. So first, we'll just try to see, by having a simple resistance across the load, across the PV, we'll see that the power is not equivalent to the maximum power. Right. So we'll just quickly and share the screen of that. So what we'll do here is that. Right. So we'll just replace this. And we'll have a resistance of value equal to 4.8 ohm, which is nothing but the internal impedance. We can call it as internal impedance of the PV. So the PV is having 4.8 ohm. Now the load is also 4.8. So the power delivered by the PV should be equal to 60 watt. Right. So let me do that. So this is the result what we have. Right. So you can see here that the power generated by the PV is 60.5 to approx 60 watt. Right. Since we have connected a load of value equal to RMPP. Right. For any other value of load resistance, the PV is not going to generate 60 watt, it will be lesser than this. Now we will do the same thing. What if we have a buck converter? Right. So we will do it for a buck converter. So you can see here we have already connected. So we have a buck. Let me enable. So we have a buck converter. Now the load resistance value here is 2.4 and it is not equal. It is not equal to the RMPP. It is 2.4 ohm. So even then we want to have a maximum power coming out. So then what we have to do? We have to adjust the duty cycle equal to 1/√2. So here I have set the duty switching point such that the duty cycle is 1/√2. So now we will just try to simulate, and we will see that the power that we get out of the converter is still 60 watt. Right. Let me share the screen. Okay. So fine. Okay. So I'll just share the simulation with you because it is having so many windows popping up. So I will do that. So what we basically saw is that by adjusting the duty cycle of the converters, of a DC-DC converters, we can make the power generated by the PV to be maximum. Right. That we saw. Next, we'll see about the MPPT techniques. Right. So there are innumerable techniques that are available on this MPPT. Right. There are several, but basically all these techniques aims at obtaining or aims at drawing a maximum power from the PV irrespective of the load variation. Right. So some of the methods are like, we have something called as the fixed duty cycle. And here the load is adjusted only once. And we are going to operate the converter in the fixed duty cycle as we just did now. That once we know the load value, calculate the duty cycle and fix the value, and we keep the converter running. So that is called as a fixed duty cycle, but this is not applicable if the temperature and insulations are varying. Right? then there is no guarantee that you will find the maximum. Then we have constant voltage method. So what does the method suggest is the MPP voltage, whatever we see, is generally around 70 to 80% of the open circuit voltage. So what we do, we are going to fix this. Open circuit voltage of the PV is almost constant. So we are going to take the 70% of the value and we are going to assume that is the VMPP and we are going to operate at that point. Right? Then we have P&O, that is perturb and observe, and P&O based on PI. So this is one of the popular and most simplest method of achieving the maximum power point. That is the perturb and observe. What we do here is we are going to vary the duty cycle of the converter, and we will see how the power and the voltage are varying. Right? So if the power and voltage are varying with each other, that is, if your dP by dV is greater than 0, that is, if you increase the voltage, if the power is also increasing, then it means you are on the left side of the PV curve. Right? So this is your curve, this is your P, and this is your V. Right? So when you increase voltage, if power is also increasing, that means you are on the left. So if you are on the left, then you continue the same process till it reaches this point. After this point, the P is going to decrease even there is an increase in the V. Right? After this point, during this point, V is increasing but P is decreasing. Then you get back to the previous point. So this way, you will tend to oscillate around these points. They are going to tend to oscillate around, and this is the whole idea of perturb and observe. So what are you perturbing? You are perturbing the duty cycle, and what are you observing? You are observing the power and the voltage. Then we have system oscillation ripple correlation method. So ripple correlation method is basically you are going to observe the ripple voltage and the ripple current, power. If they both are in phase to each other, then you are on the left side of the MPP. If they are out of phase, then you are on the right side. So depending on that, we have. So these are some of the popular methods and their comparison given here. Right? So we have P&O, IC, and these are their features like implementation, what is the accuracy, and sensors, how many sensors you require. So these are some of, you can find n number of MPPT techniques, and almost now this coming up with a new MPPT is almost saturated. So there are no more, means the frequency of a new method of MPPT is very less, right? So there is no much scope, and it is highly exhaustive. So there is no much scope in, especially in this MPPT technique, because all kind of MPPTs have been methods have been explored, and artificial intelligence based, ANN based, everything has been done. Right? So next we will see the PV system diagnosis. So what this is the typical characteristic or typical situation that we can see when we have several PVs connected in series. Right? So when we have many PVs connected in series, this is a uniformly, this picture here represents a uniformly irradiated or PVs, and this is the curve. Right? So this is what we have been seeing from the beginning, the IV curve. Right? In the first quadrant, the PV is forward bias, and then in the second quadrant it is reverse bias because the voltage is negative. Right? So this is how the curve would vary. Right? So when we have many PVs connected in series, and we have a common point, MPP point for all, since the series current, that is the string current, is a constant. But assume due to some reason, like you can see in this figure, we have a pole here, we have a pole here, we have a pole, and you can see the shadow of the pole is falling here. Then what would happen? These particular cells are totally blocked, and there is no insolation received, there is no sunlight received. That is called as a shading. Right? When a shading happens on the PV, basically it is going to get reverse biased. Right? It will be reverse biased. And once it is reverse biased, and you have an MPP which is going to adjust the current, now what is happening? The current is still positive, but the voltage is negative. Right? Now instead of generating power, this PV is going to dissipate power, and that is called as hot why the hotspot is going to occur is because of the temperature rise due to the power that is getting dissipated in the PV instead of generation. So this should be avoided, and this can be avoided by having something called as a blocking diode in parallel with this kind of PV. Now, the diode direction, you have to observe that it is in such a direction that the moment PV gets reverse biased, the diode is forward biased, and it is going to provide a path for the current, right? And in a way, it is going to bypass, right? It is going to bypass the strings which are reverse biased, and it is going to safeguard the PV. So this is very important when we go for a string inverter architecture. Okay. So in a string, it is very important to have a bypass diode to ensure the safety. So now we'll see the control scheme for a grid connected PV inverter. So here you can see this is a single stage architecture, and this is the dual stage. In single stage, what we have a single inverter, we have PV directly on the DC link, and we have a filter, and we have an inverter control happening, and synchronization is required because we are connecting to basically it is a kind of this overall system. What we have here is emulating a synchronous machine. It is just like connecting an alternator to an infinite star. So synchronization is essential. Then in case of a dual stage, what we have a dedicated DC-DC converter followed by an inverter. Now the function of DC-DC converter is to perform MPPT, and the inverter is going to take care of the currents that is being injected. Why only current it is taking care? Because the voltage is anyway not in our hand, because it is an infinite grid. Right? Since it is an infinite grid, by the small power source we cannot alter the voltage. So voltage is fixed. Only thing we can inject a current which is at any given power factor into the grid. We cannot alter the voltage. Right? So this is a typical, either it could be a single stage or it could be a dual stage. In case of a single stage, inverter itself performs the power injection, current quality, and also the MPPT. In case of a dual stage, inverter performs only the power quality. It takes care of that, whereas the MPPT is taken care by the DC-DC converter. Now, how the control would look like? So the control could be a synchronous frame control, right? Or it could be a stationary frame control, right? Where we have a stationary frame here, a synchronous frame here, right? These are the Q-arc and the path transformations. So using that, we are going to operate the modulator. So that is the control scheme. Now we'll slowly get into the multi-level architecture. Right? So far we saw the characteristics of a PV and how do we use a DC-DC converters for obtaining the maximum power, and how a typical grid-connected PV system architecture would look like. Right. Now we'll go for something called a multi-level, which is basically the inverter structure. Right. Right. So it is basically the inverter structure. So here you can see we have a single pole double throw switch, which can be switched either to the top or the bottom. So if by doing that on a particular fashion, you can generate a voltage of this sort. Right? Now assume you have an extra point that is a neutral point. Then by connecting that pole here through to this pole, you can generate a zero level additional. Right? So this is the voltage you can achieve. And if you have many such points, then this is the voltage you can achieve. So this is the overall idea of a multi-level inverter, where we use a set of switches in a particular fashion so that the voltage, whatever is achieved, very closely resembles a sine wave. Right? Here you can see this switched waveform. Of course, the average variation is sine, but still this waveform has a better approximation of the sine as compared to the previous. So this is called a two-level inverter. Right? This is a two-level inverter. This is a three-level. This is a nine-level inverter. The advantage of multi-level is that reduced dV by dt, higher efficiency and fault tolerant stability. Right. So why we are looking at inverter? Because in all the previous case, whatever we saw in the architecture as well, if you remember, we had an inverter at the end stage before connecting it to the grid. So inverter plays a very key role in a grid connected PV system, because it ultimately is the entity which is going to dump the entire power that is extracted from the PV. Right. So multi-level inverter is very popular for this application, since it has it by default or inherently it has the power quality improvement. It has a better power quality. So first we'll just try to see a simple 5-level inverter, which is a modular inverter based PV system. So overall control, the main idea of presenting this is to give an overall picture of how exactly we are going to design a control and what are the kind of results we can obtain. Right. So here you can see a simple H-bridge inverter, which is called H-bridge 1, and you have H-bridge 2. These two bridges are connected in series, and we have two PV modules. This is PV module 1 and PV module 2 connected to each of the DC links. Right. And you have a grid here, and this is the grid impedance. Right. So this is the phasor diagram, and this is the equivalent circuit. What you can see here is the inverter is basically generating a switched waveform that you can see here, and you have a grid which is having a fundamental voltage, and we have a filter L, right? And this is the voltage VL, right? Voltage VL, and this is the voltage VG, right? And we are going to inject a current IG which is in phase with VG. That means you are going to operate at unity power factor, right? And this is the inverter 1 voltage and inverter 2 voltage, the phasor. And the phasor sum will be the inverter, the overall voltage, that is V inverter is nothing but, since they are connected in series, it is V inverter 1 plus V inverter 2, the phasor addition. Right. And this is the angle delta by which the inverter voltage is leading the grid voltage. The inverter voltage and grid is having the angle delta. Only if the inverter voltage leads VG, power is going to flow from inverter to the grid. Of course, just like any synchronous machine, power always flows from a leading machine to a lagging machine. Right? So by altering the power factor angle, we are going to achieve. By adjusting this delta, we can control the power that is being injected into the grid. Now, what are the challenges associated here? Is that the PV module 1, we should be extracting the maximum power out of it, and PV module 2 should be we should extract maximum power, and the H bridges, that is bridge 1 and bridge 2, they are connected in series. So in a way, they both are coupled. Right? The power out of PV1 and PV2, they are getting coupled, and then they are getting injected into the grid. So what are the things you have to take care? We have to make sure that there is MPPT happening on 1 and 2, and we should make sure that the IG current is in phase with VG, and it should be of high quality. That is, the total harmonic distortion should be very low. So these are some of the tasks that we have to do when we actually go for an inverter connected to the grid. So this is the simple control scheme that is used. So what we have here is a RCC MPPT, that is ripple correlation control. This is the MPPT we have used. Correlation control, right? So then we have, and it is going to generate a DC link voltage, of course, right? So then we have two PI controllers, which is going to generate the reference current. That is, if you have to extract a given value of power from the PV, then what should be the current that should be injected into it? Because the power coming out from P, let me write it as PV. The power coming out of P is nothing but the power injected into the grid, right? IG, and now we have two PV modules, so it has to be adjusted, because it is not sure that both the PV modules are exposed to the same level of irradiation. It may happen that the irradiation, that is S1, is higher than S2. Right? S1 might be greater than S2. So we have to separate out, or we are going to proportionally change the value of the current that is being extracted from the PV. So that is being done by this unit, which is going to scale the PV, and then we have a synchronization and actual grid current comparison. Then we have a PR controller, proportional resonant, which is going to generate the reference voltages, and after comparison, you have the gate signals generated. So here you can see this is what I was talking about. So the total power injected into the grid is nothing but the summation of power of each of the PV module, and IG is nothing but total power by VG, and inverter 1 by total AC voltage is proportional to this power. And this is the current control loop. So you can tune the value of the PI and the PR controller. Right? And these were the specification of the PV module used. Right? So we used two PV modules. One is of 60 watt, another is of 85 watt. Right? And these are the inverter parameters that were used. The grid voltage was scaled down to 30. Rated grid current was 6 amperes. Because the rated current, the power was 180. Right? So these are the results, what you can see here. Right? So firstly, we had the same PV, means we used a similar PV modules on both. We used the same 60 watts on both, and you can see this is the IPV1 and IPV2. So you can see the currents being drawn is almost same, right? And this is the power. Both are injecting 60 watts of power, and at time t equal to 1.5 seconds, the insolation on the second PV is reduced. So you can see the power is reduced to 30 watts, and then it is increased here again. It goes to somewhere around 45. Then you have a reduced here. So ultimately, what we want to see here is this is the power injected into the grid. Right? What you can see here, independent of each other, that is, whenever there is an irradiation change on the PV1, the MPPT is able to be tracked, and whenever there is a change in PV2, again we are able to track the MPPT independent of each other. And this is the inverter voltage of each. Right, V inverter 2, and this is your V inverter 1, and this is the combined voltage, which is V inverter. So you can see it is a 5-level voltage, multi-level voltage being generated, and this is the current. You can see the red color is the current, which is having very low THD, and it is of high power quality. Right. So PV mismatch, that is when we have a 60 watt and 85 watt panel, you can see even then the PV, the MPPT controller is able to extract the maximum power from each of the modules. One of the module is operating at 60 watt, which is its maximum power. Another is at 85 watt, which is again its maximum power. So even when there is a PV mismatch, the controller is able to do its job. Right? So and this is the THD and the power graph. So that is all about the inverter and how a simple cascaded inverter can be controlled for achieving the MPPT and grid regulation. Right? Now we'll see something called as boosting inverters. The main reason for boosting inverters is that either we have to go for a transformer for boosting the voltage because the PV voltage is very low value, or we have to go for a DC-DC converter. That is, either we have to go for an AC boosting or we have to go for a DC boosting. And if you go for AC, we have to go for transformer. So it is going to increase the size and it is bulky. If you go for a DC, then you have an additional converter coming in, and it is a two-stage conversion. The efficiency will be lower. So what was done is we came up with an inverter architecture structure which had an inherent boosting. Means it is a single stage. We don't need a transformer and we don't need an additional DC-DC converter. The inverter itself is able to boost the voltage. So this was the first topology that was developed. It was in the year 2019, right? So here you can see it is a 5-level inverter using a simple switched capacitor. We could able to generate a boosting gain of 2, and also 5 levels. Right? So these are the operating modes, and these were the results obtained. So in all the cases, we could able to obtain a voltage, that is, we could able to regulate the capacitor voltage. Then we extended this to 9 level by replacing the switched capacitor, the source with a switched capacitor unit. And so now you can see the output voltage is having a gain of 4. So hence it was named a quadruple boost inverter. Right. So the inverter has a gain of 4, and it was able to generate 9 levels. These are the experimental results. You can see the inverter is able to have 9 levels of output. Right. And now challenges and research. So what was the problem with this kind of switch capacitor based inverter is that there will be severe current spike due to the charging of the capacitor. So we have to somehow make sure, or we have to come up with a current limiting circuit to make sure that the switch stress is not it is not going above the rated value. Right? And we require a startup circuit to make sure that the capacitors are pre-charged. Right? Next is we have something called issue called as a leakage current. Right? So the boosting inverters, whatever we saw, it's an advanced inverter as compared to the conventional HV or interpoint clamped or offline capacitors. Right? Without any capacity, boosting inverter has an inherent voltage gain. Right? Next, we have something called as the leakage current issue. This is very common when we have a PV connected to the grid without transformer. That is, it is very common in a transformer less inverter. Right? When we remove the transformer, the ground of both the PV and the grid is same. So this is going to establish a path called as a common mode path, and there will be additional current called as a leakage current, which is going to affect the personal safety, and also it is going to distort the grid current. Right? So that is called, because of the parasitic capacitance, what you can see here, it is called parasitic capacitance, and because of common grounding, it is going to come into picture, and it is going to affect the power quality, and also it is going to affect the method. So how exactly this leakage current is coming into picture? So these are some of the formulations that shows that when we have an inverter, we have the equivalent voltage that is called as common mode voltage is going to affect this leakage current, and this common mode voltage has to be somehow kept constant. So if you, this is a simple H bridge. If you go for a bipolar modulation, like here, you can see that the common mode voltage is a constant, that is VDC by 2. Whereas if you go for unipolar modulation, you can see the common mode voltage varies. So when such a varying common mode voltage is generated, it is going to cause a higher leakage current across the C, because we know the leakage current CP is nothing but C into dV by dt. Right? So higher the dV by dt, more will be the leakage current. So this dV by dt has to be limited. So we have several topologies that are available for limiting this dV by dt. So one of the popular techniques is to go for a decoupling either on the DC side or on the AC side. So what is this decoupling? Decoupling is basically disconnecting the PV from the grid during the zero state. Zero state means freewheeling state, during which the PV is disconnected from the grid. This is going to reduce, or it is going to minimize the current. Right? So these are some of the topologies. We have H5, H6, and we have AC decoupling type. Then we have the next version, that is the common ground type, where the PV neutral or the negative terminal is directly connected to the grid node. So this completely eliminates the capacitance, because we have a capacitor here, right? It is grounded. So even this point is grounded, so the capacitance effect is nullified. The leakage current becomes completely zero in case of a common ground type. So this was one of the topologies that was designed on the basis of reducing the leakage current. Here you can see the neutral point, that is the midpoint of the DC link is used as a neutral point, and it has a voltage gain of 1.5. So it has a boosting capacity, and also it has the ability to minimize the leakage current. So this was the PWM. These were the results that were used. It was implemented for 3-phase. Right. These are the results showing the dynamic performance. These are the voltage across the device and current. You can see because of the switched current, switched capacitor, some of the devices needs to carry a higher value of current. Right? They have to withstand a higher value of the current. So these devices have to be properly taken care of. Right. So then we have the last topic, that is the common mode voltage reduction, that is the zero leakage current. So here you can see the topology proposed. We had a direct connection of neutral with the grid neutral. That is a negative point with the grid neutral. Okay. So these are the operating modes. These are the simulation results and experimental results. This is for the grid connector operation. You can see for unity power factor. This is for lagging power factor. In all the cases, the leakage current was zero since the parasitic capacitance was completely, its effect was completely nullified. So this was, then we did the thermal analysis to know what is the power loss happening in the device. And this is the comparison that the proposed was found to have a lowest C. C is the total standing voltage. It had a lowest semiconductor requirement as compared to the other. So that proved the effectiveness of the proposed technology. What are the challenges here is the control of flying capacitor, voltage, higher current stress because of the switched capacitor, and large capacitors are required. So this is another issue. So one may come up with some other variants which require a lesser, smaller capacitance, and or which would require a reduced complex control system for maintaining the capacitor voltage. And these are some of the references. Thank you. And if there are any queries, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you for your wonderful session, sir. There are a few queries they have posted in the YouTube also. Just I'll go through that. Sir, actually, they have asked for that buck boost. Buck boost, which one is preferred, and why the clock is placed over there?
Okay, buck boost. Okay, among the three, which one is preferred?
Which one is preferred, and why the clock is placed over there?
Okay, in the simulation.
Yes,
okay.
sir. Yes, sir.
So
yeah, simulation.
So among the three, like as I already told, buck converter can only perform the MPPT when load resistance is lesser than the RMPP, and boost is just opposite when load resistance is greater. So only the buck boost converter can cover the entire span of the IV curve because it has both the characteristics. Right? So in that way, buck boost is the best suited converter for MPPT operation, since it can cover the entire span of the IV curve, and any value of load resistance you can adjust the duty cycle, and you can still track the maximum power point. When you go for a buck converter, the moment load resistance is lesser than the RMPP, you can no longer adjust the duty cycle. And similarly, in case of a boost, the moment it goes above the RMPP, you cannot adjust. So buck boost is the better means best option. And in case of PC, the clock there, it basically has a setting of the total time you want to simulate, and also it has nothing to do with the solar irradiation or the insolation. It is only the simulation control where you are going to set the total time and also the time step, that is the time size, step size of your simulation. Right? Yes. Next
Thank
question.
you, sir. One more question. For PV system simulation, which software is preferable and it can be freely downloaded?
Okay. Okay. Freely downloadable is. I don't think you have anything. Entity spice is there, of course, but you need to model the PV there, right? But when you ask me, PSIM is better for PV system because here you have the actual circuit components, unlike the MATLAB where we have models and equations will be used for solving there. But in PSIM you have the actual elements and the results will be more realistic in case of PSIM. Of course, it is not an open source PSIM, whereas it is open source and it is best suited for converter and any inverter control simulation as well. But it is not so straightforward and easy. But once you are used to it, LT Spice serves all the purpose. So it is better.
One of the participants, they are asking that SAM software is a free downloaded.
SAM, I don't know. Like first time I'm hearing. Might be. SAM.
So these are the few questions, sir, from the respected participants, and you're very happy to share that you have got very good compliments from n number of participants. Nice sessions, very good like that. And before concluding that, I request our respected advisor, Dr. Santosh Kumar Hamparnavar, sir, to share the valuable points.
Yeah, thank you, Ankaya. Dr. Sandeep, in fact, it was very comprehensive, informative, and excellent presentation. And it has, as usual, whenever we invited you, you presented, and this is one sequel in that particular series of webinars what we are conducting. And the information what you have presented, like what you have provided to the researchers and the students, it is very helpful for them to carry out research at the same time, do their projects at their bachelor's and thesis at their master's and doctorate level. Fine. This is what I'm supposed to, like I was willing to tell you, and literally the presentation went right, and literally people appreciated. Only thing what I would like to ask you is whether these solar and PV, have they improved in last pandemic situation, or still we are on the same thing in terms of the installation? Before pandemic, what was the installed capacity, and now whether it has changed or there is some problem like lower past 14 months?
Sir, okay. Frankly, okay. Global installation, I don't have any data, but I can share the real-time situation what we are facing. So, as a part, we have a project of MNIT, which as a part of that, we are supposed to have a distributed generation installed in a village, which we have already got a DSC project is going on. So, it was supposed to got completed in last 2020 October, but still we are still in the process of taking the like the inverter PV and everything. Now we have in the stage of we have just completed the basement construction and many things. So we are running in a delay of almost 1 year. So this is what we are seeing like in our day-to-day life. So same thing, I think it is on a larger scale is happening globally. So it is very difficult to get the things running and especially the installation. A small project has got delayed by time of 1 year. So I don't think globally there is a great improvement.
Might be the problem. Yeah. Yeah. Only thing like what we hope is like in the days, in the years to come, in the months to come, if things go right, installation will be proper as per the statistics what government gives. And thank you once again, Dr. Sandeep. And on this note, I'd like to first of all extend my thanks from School of Tripoli and from IEEE Reva University IEEE PS Student Branch Chapter. Thank you, and we seek the same cooperation in future also. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for this opportunity, and I hope whatever was presented or discussed in past 1.5 hours, it makes some sense and it will be of some help, some useful way for all the participants. And thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. It's a very wonderful session. It will be useful to upcoming researchers and those who are doing research in the photovoltaic cells, especially maximum power point tracking system and everything. It is very good. And thank you once again from School of Triple E and IEEE Students Branch Chapter, Reva University. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Respected participants, feedback link is shared in the chat box. You can fill the feedback link, and tomorrow we'll have wonderful session with one of the good reputed speakers. So we'll see in the tomorrow session. Thank you.